Hi, my guest today is RJ Sheedy, who's running for one of the 2 available seats on the Milford School Committee. Welcome, RJ.
Kevin, thank you so much for having me here today.
So we're going to ask the first and really toughest question. Why are you running for school committee?
You know, that is a tough question. I don't think anyone's asked me that yet. Why I'm running for school committee? The reason why I'm running for school committee is because I'm ready to give back to my town in this way. 7 years ago, I was fortunate enough to find my career path that I wanted to go on in high school by filming school committee meetings for a year and a half. My video production teacher walked in the room one day and said, "Hey, is someone available to film the school committee meetings?" And I was one of the only people that volunteered. And so what was supposed to be my education in television production became my education in civics. And since then...
And in what the school committee does.
And in what the school committee does, yeah. I think it's really important for someone who wants to be on the school committee to actually understand the roles that they have.
Just out of curiosity, do you remember any of the big debates while you videotaped them?
Well, the very first meeting I walked into, maybe you know a little bit more about this story. I've been trying to remember it a lot, but there was an incident where a high school coach was fired.
Yep.
And that was my first meeting.
Okay.
It was the meeting where all the parents and students and...
The one who basically went kind of nutty in the locker room.
Yeah, that coach, yes.
Okay.
So that was my very first school committee meeting that I got to attend.
Right.
So honestly, there was a lot to be listened to. There's a lot to learn about. And since learning all about I did it with the school committee and learning more about civics, I became more involved in this town. I started a television show here where I got to interview local business owners, Milford educators, people who are in government offices like our state rep. Our U.S. rep, Joe Kennedy, was actually on one time, so that was really fascinating. And I also became a town meeting member. So
you're about to graduate from college?
Yes, I am.
So by hopefully a little bit after the election time, you'll have your diploma.
Yes.
And what are you looking at doing full time?
Full time, basically, I'm just looking to have a job in communications somewhere. With my education, I was able to get the full scope of it, whether it was television production, radio production, print journalism, and hopefully I can just find a job in one of those markets locally.
No, what's interesting is we actually have, if we include you, 3 relatively, counting you, recent college grads running.
Yeah.
Don't want to name your opponents, but we have one who graduated about 5 years ago. Okay. Which is you're about 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, we graduated together, me and Tarek, yes.
Okay, so in the workforce. And then also we have somebody who's been out a couple more years running. A lot of young people running. So what is it about your experience that makes you, want to give back at such a young age?
What basically makes me want to give back at such a young age is, at the end of the day, really how much the school department gave me. The school department, thanks to their video production coursework, and everybody here at Milford TV, of course, basically gave me the opportunity of a life to find what I wanted to make my life passion, which is media, television production, all that other
personally, my oldest son, Mike, had a teacher in high school who thought he had a gift for IT, which sounds funny. You say like he's an artist, he's great in sports. Inspired my son's passion for IT. And 5 years out of college, he's making a tremendous living at it, and there isn't a day he doesn't go by and thank that teacher for putting it in his head.
Yeah.
And just like you, just to digress for a minute, when he was in high school in his junior and senior year, he actually was the IT guy for the Mendon Upton school system.
Yeah.
As a high school junior and senior. And when he was in college, he was the IT guy for all the professors in the college.
That's one thing that I think Milford Schools does really, really, really well, is that their staff is really dedicated to their students. I know photography teachers from the past. I know video production teachers from the past who are really...
I think it's a tremendous thing when somebody can help somebody discover their passion and make a career out of it like you are.
Yes.
I think that's to be proof the school system has worked. But anyway, I interrupted you. See, you want to get back because of what the schools did for you.
Yeah, basically because of what the schools did for me, and like really just looking back at the end of college about how I started my career in video production, I just kept reflecting back on the school committee. I kept reflecting back on those long hours for a year and a half where I spent filming the meetings. And honestly,
As a volunteer.
As a volunteer, right? I wasn't getting paid a dime for it. So, and really, I feel like I have a lot that I could give back in that role.
Okay. What should people know about you?
What should people know about me?
I mean, obviously, you're a product of the Milford school system.
Yeah, I'm a product of the
You
Milford
grew
school
up in
systems.
Milford.
I grew up here in Milford.
You're a
My
product of the
fam-
school system.
Yeah.
You're in college. You're at Worcester State,
I'm at Worcester State. Yes, this is my
Okay.
final year there.
studying
I'm
communications
studying
and video
communications
production.
and video production there, of course. What to know about me is that
Well, what are some of the issues you care about in the school system?
some of the issues that I care about. In
you
the
don't
school
think the
systems.
system's broken, do you?
Unlike some candidates running, I do not think the school system is broken. No.
In fact, the youngest 3 people running all think it's been a tremendous school.
Well, I
system
think
for
that
them.
just has to take an advantage. I think what the perspective that we have, which is an advantage, is that we're not too far removed from the school system. We can
Right.
really understand the problems of today's schools and of today's students well by having such a close connection to that building from just being so not far removed from it. So I think
Well,
that's,
I think the interesting thing is also is you guys are proof that recent graduates are succeeding
yeah.
from the school system. I personally, I think the ugly truth that nobody wants to admit is there is a bell curve, and there always will be people on the left of the curve who maybe school isn't for them or college isn't for them. People on the right of the curve who are just, the bright people that we all know who are a lot smarter than us we meet in our life.
Yeah.
And the great majority of people are in the middle. And I think public schools educate for the people in the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, they try to reach the greatest number of people, and they're in the middle. And I also believe you get into something what you put into it. So you put a lot of effort into your career, into schools, into learning broadcasting, and you're getting a lot out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
As opposed to people who go, I want to be in broadcasting, and second semester, senior in college, go look for an internship.
Yeah, no, no. One thing that I really, really loved a lot when I first went to college is that in some of my early on video production and editing and television production classes, I was bored to tears.
You knew it all.
Because I knew it all, yeah, thanks to the education at Milford High School and the education here at Milford TV, and from filming the school committee meetings all those years, I just learned everything that they were already just now teaching some of the other kids in my class for the first time.
Yeah. So did you do more advanced work, or did you just?
In college, I did do more
So-
advanced work. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. One thing that I am really proud about that I did in college is that I worked very closely with Worcester State University's Center for Community Media. And for 2 years with them, I helped, we piloted and produced about a dozen shows of a program called The Beat. The Beat was basically it was a vision of 3 students, one of them me being myself. It was basically a program that was designed to bridge the Worcester State community with the Worcester community. So we'd bring in people from the school, like Professor Manichello, who teaches a fantastic Beatles course at Worcester State University. We bring in people from outside of school, like city councilors and some local organizers who organized a local
And where did
Women's
those
March
shows
chapter.
air?
Those shows actually aired on WCCA TV 13, the public station in Worcester.
Okay.
And it
So
also
the equivalent of Milford TV in Worcester.
the equivalent of Milford TV
so they
in
weren't
Worcester.
they
yeah.
weren't pigeonholed on a college station or anything.
There was also a closed circuit television station on
Okay.
campus where it aired, but the program was distributed to both the Worcester community at large and the Worcester State community.
Okay.
So it was really amazing, again, putting all my
Yeah.
collective skills that I've learned to a test like that.
No, I know some of the questions that I wanted to ask you, you've already answered on Al Crier's show, so I don't want to duplicate. But there are some things I want to touch on. I mean, the idea that we need new school buildings, or more than renovating the high school. I mean, I buy into the high school is umpty years old. It's built out of concrete. It may not be suited for today, so it may need some renovations. But the idea of renovating all the schools, it seems like we just finished renovating all the Milford schools. Within the last, when Woodland opened. Wasn't every school except the high school done with that? So, I mean, how do you feel about the need to improve school facilities?
So I think the school department's already looking at this need right now to try to
Right.
decide what is to be done next. I encourage at least looking at the issue right now, because we should always be planning for the future for what's next to come from the Milford Public School systems.
Right.
And if a new building fits into that vision, or a renovation of a building fits into that vision, I think that's something that we need to seriously consider about. In the terms of affording it, I don't think the town's in that position right now. We just spent $60 million on Woodland, so
And there's a water company purchase
and
somewhere in the
there's
middle.
another $60 million water
Well, that
company
depends
purchase.
on what the DPU decides it's worth.
Sure, yeah.
And right now, just to decide, you have a $118 million difference between what the water company thinks it's worth and what the town thinks the water company's worth.
Yeah, there's a lot
So that's
going
got to
on.
get narrowed down over the rest of the year. But I mean, obviously, you have to work within the finance committee to schedule a building and make sure the town can afford it without overburdening people.
Yes.
And to borrow Al Crier's phrase, you don't want to use those
We
profanities
don't want to use those profane
of
words.
override or debt exclusion, which most of the other towns have to use.
Yeah.
But you believe it should be looked at and studied.
I think it should be looked at. I think it should be studied. I think we need to start coming to terms with that. We need a new building, but again, I don't think we have the finances right now to afford it. We don't want to be pulling a 2.5 override. We don't want to be pulling debt exclusions to be affording it.
What other issues come to mind as let's say you get elected, what are the issues you want to tackle?
One of the issues that I think I would want to tackle, which I think would be a service to all the students in the community, would be to introduce a late bus program to the Milford Public School systems. Milford is really, really fortunate.
You're talking in the afternoon.
In the afternoon, yeah. So
To get the kids who run after-school activities or sports.
yeah, after-school activities, sports.
Now, pardon my ignorance, but right now, do parents have to come get them, or the kids find their own way?
It's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of
Okay.
both. You know, sometimes kids have to wait for their parents to get out of work to come get them. Other times, kids can make carpooling arrangements with other families or other students that are older that has cars. But I think that we should be doing everything that we can to give our students every opportunity to take advantage of those after-school programs. And
Okay.
if a service like a late bus could help, which I think it would, I think we should introduce that to our students. After all, when we look at our population, a lot of our students are economically disadvantaged, which could mean a lot of things. It could mean that their parents.
It might mean they don't have a.
It might mean that they don't
car.
have their family doesn't have transportation to go pick them up with a car. It might mean
Right.
that they have a second job after their first job, and they don't have, they're not available to go pick them up. So I think we should be giving our students the transportation home to give them more educational opportunities, because honestly, the more hours they have in that building, the more time they have to enrich themselves.
Okay. Any other issues you plan to bring up?
I think we need to find more ways for our schools to be sustainable. I think one thing.
What do you mean by sustainable? You're talking the environment, or are you talking about just teaching things? What I'm
think
asking you to do is define how you mean that word sustainable.
What I mean by sustainable is that I think the schools should be doing everything they can to reduce their environmental impact on the district. That means looking at things maybe like composting. That means looking at things such as solar panels. But then if we talk about solar panels, we got to go back into talking about the buildings.
Building.
What are we going to do about the high school? Are we going to be building a new high school? Are we going to be renovating it? So again, these are conversations that I
But
think
there's
we should
nothing
start.
wrong with designing it in or saying
Absolutely not.
if we need to renovate the high school or build a new one of the goals should be to install solar panels. on it.
Exactly. And I think one way that we can do this is by building carports over the parking lots that exist now at the high school. There's a school in the Mendon-Upton Regional School District that
The
just-
Misco Middle School, the
Yes.
former high school, has car parts, and I can tell you right now,
students and staff love it. They don't have to clear off their cars after a snowstorm.
the school owns the carports, the electricity is sold, and the town of Mendon, not the school district because it's a regional district, the town of Mendon gets $7,000 a year payment in lieu of taxes from those carports
And imagine
at one school.
And imagine if we launched a similar program like that at all our schools.
And by the way, the parking lot at the high school is about 18 to 20 times bigger than that parking lot we're talking about.
Yeah, so it's even more panels to power even more of the building, less money that we have to give an electrical company. And imagine what we can do.
Right, which, by the way, if people don't know, are the same panels that the Dunkin' Donuts on the corner of Fortune Boulevard and East Main Street,
Yes.
and the ones that the Dairy Queen's about to put up.
In Milford?
Yeah, they're doing carport solar too.
Fantastic. This is exactly why I think Milford needs to jump on this bandwagon right now. It's literally a proven fact where we can save money with something like this. And imagine what we could do with an extra 7,000 from one building, an extra 7,000 from another building, how we can put that revenue back into the schools, back into the students' education. We could do a lot with that money.
Okay, but in a multi-million-dollar budget, does 7,000 go far?
I think it can. I think 7,000 could be the difference from cutting a program and scaling it back down.
Or it could be bringing in some things. As a recent graduate, what did the school lack? Let's look back now. You've gone through college. When you got into college, can you think of anything you wish the school system had taught you that would have helped you get through college and life better that they don't teach? You know, be it basic finances, how to deal with college loan applications.
Yeah.
You know, these are things I've heard from one of your competitors in the race.
Yeah.
That he wished the school system had taught how to understand the college loans that you take out.
Life skills after high school.
Like
I think that is an aspect where Milford falls short from the curve. I think we should be giving students opportunity to understand what life after college will be like, which is, you know, balancing a bank book, which is knowing how to register to vote, which is knowing just basic civics and how your government works.
I have to tell you, the most important thing I ever learned about buying a new car, I learned at age 55.
What was it?
Buying the last day of the month, the last day of the quarter, or the last day of the year, because the salesmen want to make their quotas.
See, that's like valuable information that could save.
Never knew that till I worked for a woman at a very small company who was going out to buy a new car, and she said, "I got to wait till next week." I said, "Why?" And she said, "It's the last day of the month." And she looked at me and she said, "Kevin, the last day of the month, the sales guys want to make their quota. The last day of the quarter, they want to make a quota. The last day of the year, they want to make a quota. They're ready to deal."
Yeah.
And I actually bought a car after that on the last day of the year. And I got to tell you, it was the best deal I ever made.
Yeah. But back to your original question,
Yes.
you asked what Milford schools could do more of.
Right.
And I think one thing that they could do more of, which I believe they're starting to recognize, is introducing more vocational tech programs or project-based learning
That don't
opportunities
compete with BVT.
that do not exactly compete with BVT.
Or Norfolk Aggie.
Or Norfolk Aggie.
So you can't teach dairy
Yep.
and animal husbandry, and you can't do raw carpentry and other things.
Can't do culinary, right?
Right, but the construction, the idea of teaching people how to run construction equipment.
That's fantastic. The idea of teaching kids how a hotel works, that's
How a
fantastic.
hotel works. I can tell you right now, there's a huge shortage when we have a building boom of people who know how to run the equipment, who could all get jobs right away.
Literally, like if I would just, if a student was just given these skills at our schools,
Yes.
they could leave Milford High and not have to worry about where to find a job afterwards because they have a skill
Right.
that they can use right now at Milford High School.
Especially if they are students who probably would not do well at a college setting.
Definitely, definitely. Right now at Milford High, I know there's.
And by the way, I'm not trying to say that students are dumb. There's some really smart people I know who don't do well at a higher academic level.
Absolutely, yeah. There's some students who are like very, very intelligently well when they're writing their essays for English, when they're doing their homework and stuff like that. But you put a standardized test in front of them, they're lost, you know?
Or you put them in a college environment where there's a lot more freedom to do things and not a structured setting, and they just crumble.
Exactly, exactly.
But yet they you get them to get up every morning and go to a construction job, they'll do just fine.
I think that's something that we can be doing for our students right now when we look at the numbers.
So you have the construction,
Yeah.
you have the hospitality. What are some of the other ones?
We have a business and banking program right now. We
Okay,
have partnered
right.
with Milford Federal.
Right, and they
And-
have the branch in the high school.
They have the branch in the high school, yeah.
What other ones do you think would go well?
I think one thing that we can be doing is doing outreach into the community with other local businesses to try and find more connections that we can make with the community and their businesses to be streamlining kids to get jobs after school. I know they're partnering with Waters, Milton Katz, Dell EMC, along with Milford Federal and
And
the
you know,
Hotel
a lot of
Hospitalities.
these places are places where once somebody got there and settled in for a couple of years, like a Waters,
Yeah.
a Dell EMC.
You got a resume right there, and you can go
Well-
find yourself another job, maybe.
Well, no, what I was going to say, they also might find, after they've been in the job for a couple of years, that since some of these companies have college assistance programs, that they'd be
Yeah.
eligible for promotion with like a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree, and they could on their own start pursuing it. And maybe when you're 18 and graduating, they wouldn't do well in college. But when they're 22, and with a couple of years of working under their belt, they might say, you know, I can get ahead if I do like, 2 years of Quinsiget nights.
Yeah, just to relate to that, my uncle who works at Waters, he just got his college diploma, I think 5-6 years ago, by just doing online classes that Waters helped him set up and pay for and take and everything.
Yeah.
And with that college degree, he got like a nice little boost in his salary too.
But he also had a very good job while he did that.
Yeah.
So, I think things like that are really great opportunities. I know when I graduated from high school back in the last century, one of the things they had that was innovative is they let seniors do an independent study class. And I remember it was 2 days a week. I got at school at noon, second semester senior year, and that was like fantastic. And I had a major like 30-page term paper due at the end of the year. And just to make sure that we didn't mess it up, I had to meet with the teacher one day a week to show him where I was going.
Okay.
So they put a cushion around you so you didn't leave it till the last week. You had to show progress through the year. But I mean, basically, we did the work when we wanted to, and we all got out. I mean, I worked those 2 afternoons. I went to work full time.
Yeah.
And I did the independent study on weekends and at night and got it done. So I mean, there's another opportunity for things like that. What about tying into colleges and letting kids go to college classes while they're still in high school?
We actually have initiatives like that already. Framingham State University and LaSalle College actually does classes with people who are with certain students to give them actual college credits.
Do you think that should be expanded to kids who are eligible for that?
I think so, yeah. Why not? If we can afford it, of course.
Yeah. And if the kids can afford, do the kids have to pay tuition, or do they just get credit at the school?
I believe they just get credit at the school. Don't quote me on. I'm sitting on a news show. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure the school takes care of it.
Okay. But are there any other initiatives or things you think you'd like to accomplish?
I think we can always improve upon communication inside the district, both with our students and our families. I know when I first started filming the school committee meetings as a student, I didn't know who this group of people were. I didn't know what roles and responsibilities they had under them, and I didn't know what they were working on to improve the lives of me and my fellow students. So I think putting more of that information out there, whether it's a newsletter that's custom built for students and families to be sent home to them, to just explain to them that this is who we are, this is what we're working on, and also just get more input from families, because we're working on a lot of things that I'm sure we could be getting outside input on, and we're just not hearing from people. One of the best things that school committee offers is an invitation to speak, and not a lot of people use it. So I would really like to work on improving communication throughout the district.
I was going to say, I believe it was the Shrewsbury district a couple of years ago when my mom and dad were living in a senior community in Shrewsbury. They would get twice a year, they'd get in September and they'd get in January. They would actually get like a 4 to 8 page newspaper sent to them by the school district. That I remember the one in September or August had the bus schedule.
Yeah.
It had the athletic schedule for the fall. It had messages from the superintendent, the principals, and the school committee on where they were going and things they wanted to accomplish. Then in January, you got the spring athletic schedules, the winter and spring athletic schedule, the same thing. So if you lived in the town, you had a general idea, like my parents were seniors.
Yeah.
But they pay taxes. So you got a general idea, though, of what your tax dollars were paying for, whether you had kids in the system or not.
Yeah.
And I always said, boy, I wish my school district did that. I mean, where I am right now, my kids are all done with the local school system. I tend not to read the articles about the school system in the paper because, well, I don't have a kid there.
And I feel like a lot of people do that as well.
But then the downside of that is they wanted, they had an open night for anybody to come in and say, what'd you think about the school system? And I missed it because it was a headline about school committee, da-da-da, and I said, yeah, right. And do it. And I think a lot of people do that. So how do you communicate? How would you communicate better?
I think just like what you said, a newsletter maybe. I think that's a valuable piece of resource.
If you're a parent, you get all the emails in the world while your kid's in the school system.
True, you do, you do. There's also a website, and I know it's always can be tricky to find things on there. I had to email the superintendent the other day to help me find a slideshow that I was having trouble finding myself on there.
But you can find it pretty much or ask.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we should just be handing this information to our parents and to our families rather than making them go seek this out themselves.
I mean, would you want to have the chairman of the school committee, for example, and or the superintendent, do like a regular monthly drop-in on that Milford show with Crier or with us here on 30 Minutes?
Well, they do a good job at marketing themselves. They already
No.
do spots here on Milford TV. The superintendent just introduced a new program here called Stock Soup, and their marketing committee works really well with Deborah Marcy to get students who are achieving great things and basically to promote what the good things that's happening in the district on the radio station. So I think they're already doing a lot of outreach. I think there's always more that we can do.
Well, speaking about outreach, we know there's been a lot of outreach to stop the choice out of the school system.
Sure.
But we know basically some people are just choicing out because they think neighboring school systems are better, or in some cases they actually don't want the diversity. And that I'm using diversity in air quotes as a code word for whatever they find unpopular in the Milford school system that they don't want their child exposed to. And I don't mean that, well, I do mean it negatively. They just don't like the atmosphere. They want to put their kids somewhere else. How do you get them back?
I feel like in certain situations, there's just nothing that the school department themselves can do. I feel like in certain times they just make personal decisions with their family about what's best for them.
I mean, the words I've been hearing is they want a more homogeneous,
I've been hearing that
as
too.
opposed to diverse
I've been
school
hearing that too.
population for their child.
But here's the thing, there's nothing that I, as a school committee member, can do about the population that we have in our school district or town.
Here's the thing, the real world is quite diverse.
Exactly. One thing that I can tell you is that going to school in Worcester,
Yeah.
do you know how diverse that city is?
I do.
Being a student in Milford and having a diverse group of students around me was able to really help me learn more about different people's cultures and their backgrounds and their languages.
I remember going to a
School in Newark?
I did go to I went to high school in Newark, but my high school was inner city, and I make no bones about telling people it was 1/3 Puerto Rican American. Well, Puerto Ricans are Americans. 1/3 people of Puerto Rican descent, 1/3 African American, 1/3 white. We learned how to get along.
Yeah. And that's a really valuable life skill to have.
And I've seen culture shock though when people go to college, and all of a sudden they're in an urban area or they're in an area, as you said, like Worcester with great diversity, and they have no idea how to talk to people.
Yeah.
Or relate to people.
No, I think diversity is a strength of our district, and I wish we can market that more. But honestly, when it comes to the parents who are leaving for that reason, there's nothing I can do about that.
Right.
If they want a more homogeneous experience, then they should give their children the education that they want them to have, I guess.
Sure. Okay, RJ, we've got a couple of seconds left. Your turn to tell the voters, last call, why should they vote for you?
Sure. So I think the reason why you should vote for me is that I really am looking to give back to the town in a new way. I've been a town meeting member for the past few years, for the past year. So I really learned a lot about the ins and outs of our government, of our town government there, as well as by filming the school committee meetings for a year and a half. And I think it's really, really important to have a school committee member who understands the problems of today's schools and today's students, and someone who is not too far away from those students to actually relate to them.
Okay.
So I think for some of those reasons, and the whole conversation that we just had, I hope that your viewers will be able to vote for me.
Well, RJ, thanks for coming, and good luck on April 2nd.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Okay.